can dive into it. Okay. So when it comes to sales and negotiations, as I mentioned earlier, like there's a lot more to it than just being really good with your words. You got several things that you want to take in consideration um, when it comes to sales and negotiations. So one is tonality. You got verbal pacing. You've got verbal cues, tonality, verbal pacing, verbal cues. You've got um, what is it? Bridging, Brid, bridging. I think I spelled that right. Birding, bridge. I don't know. Does that look right? Did I spell that right? Bridge, B-R-I-D. I didn't spell it right. It's okay. We get bridging. So these are three. Oh, you know what? Also, you've got body language. Okay, body language is probably the most important. So when you're doing sales and negotiations, you always want to make sure your tonality is good. You've got really good verbal pacing, your verbal cues. You're utilizing verbal cues to make the conversation sound more natural. And that also allows you to bridge into questions that you're going into, and you got body language. So these are the things that we want to focus on and make sure we're implementing when we're doing our sales negotiations, or I guess our pitch. Okay. Now I want to show you all this. Uh, it is what's it called? What's it called? Sales funnel. Sales and negotiations funnel. See if I can find it. Template or images. Here we go. Let's do new model of selling. All right, so let's check this out. Awareness, interest, desire. No. Okay. Yeah, so I'm not saying what I want to see. Darn it. I had it pulled up earlier. That's okay. So basically, when people go and do their when people go and do their sales and negotiations when it comes to making appointments, they typically run it as far as wholesale side goes. They typically run it focusing primarily on the property. Even when they're making their initial phone call to the seller, they focus very heavily on the property condition, property characteristics, and what's going on in the market and how much they can offer them. That's typically the average sales call for a wholesaler. But there's so much that they're missing, right? So one of the key things that I had mentioned earlier today was we want to be really good at being the best problem finders before we can be problem solvers. This is really, really key because the more problems we can dissect, the more value we can add, right? So I like that. The more problems we can dissect, the more value. So the more problems we find, the more value we can add. Ooh, I like that a lot. Okay, I should coin that because it's very true. We can't present a service or a solution prior to finding the problems. Because if we do, then it's just us being another salesperson shoving our product and our service in the seller's face. And at the end of the day, that's not very helpful. It's not very informative. It's not very beneficial. And you're also not keeping their best interests at heart, right? And to begin with. So when you're calling sellers or when you're talking to sellers, you want to ask a lot of different questions to uncover a lot of, I guess, truths. So there's some questions to ask would be, has you looking to possibly, keyword here is possibly part ways with your property now though. Okay. This is a really good question to ask a seller. So, what has you looking to possibly part ways with the property now, though? So, we're going to use this question and we're going to focus on tonality, verbal pacing, verbal cues, bridging, not really body language because we don't really have anybody to, I guess, look at as far as that goes. Um, so, when it comes to tonality, your tonality breaks down to several things. Tonality. You've got a confused tone, which in this case for this question is perfect. So you got a confused tone, got a challenging tone, which basically makes them, or you're challenging their thought process, and that causes them to think about what you're saying. Typically, a challenging tone is going to be when somebody says, um, somebody's like, I got multiple offers on the table, and I just want to see who's going to be the best one, right? And a challenging tone would be like, it could be like, you could say something along the lines of, I totally hear you and I understand. I guess what if, like, have you thought about what would happen if, let's say you went with one of those other offers and, um, I guess they just come back and renegotiate with you and ask for like this ridiculous reduction. Like, have you thought about that? So that's a challenging tone. Um, because it's like, oh dang, I have not thought about that. I didn't know people could do it. It's like people do it all the time. So confused tone, challenging tone. You've also got, I would say, mm, confident. Yeah, I guess you can say confident. Confident tone. You've got overly excited. Overly excited, which you want to refrain from most times. Um, okay. All right, and then you've got concern. Okay, sweet. So out of these, say concern, copy. Okay. All right, just do that. Okay. So out of these tonalities, confused, challenging, concern are going to be your most commonly used. Confident will be basically just when you're already throughout the process of talking with them on the phone. Like you've already built up rapport, you've built up trust, and this is just you being assertive, but not assumptive. So you're just confident with what it is that you're relaying over to them. And then overly excited, you want to stay away from this tone for the most part. It's overly excited. And the reason for it is because think about it like this: when somebody cold calls you, they say, "Hey, is this Darian?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Like, "Hey, Darian, this is um, Jake." "Hey, Darian, this is Jake from State Farm. I was just calling, and the reason for the call today was blah 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 blah." Right? One, that's word vomit. Two, right off the bat, you're already creating sales resistance just from how you're handling that call and just from the words that you're using and how you're pitching me. You're creating a lot of sales resistance. One, you're sounding overly excited. You're sounding entirely too confident. Um, and three, you already started the call off like every other salesperson that's called me like ever before. And so I've already got a negative kind of connotation towards you in my mind because you've got 7 seconds to make a really good impact on a phone call. And by doing it and structuring your call that way, you're making a very negative impact and you're creating subconsciously in your prospect's mind, you're already creating a lot of roadblocks and you're creating a lot of sales resistance. So you want to stay away from that kind of pitch. So typically when you're doing a cold call, we'll just use cold call for example. Let me see, let me go back. Here we go. So Savannah, if I was cold calling you, this is how I would approach my cold call. It's totally different. So I'd call you, ring ring.
Hello.
Hey, is this Savannah by chance?
It is.
Hey Savannah, this is just Darian. I was hoping you could um help me out for a quick sec.
Okay. What can I do for you?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm not too sure if you could help me out just yet. Um, but basically, and then pause. That's when you go into your conversation. So it's totally different from, hey, is this Savannah? Hey, Savannah, my name is Gary, and I'm with XYZ Company. The reason for the call today is blank, 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 blank.
I'm
It's a
gonna hang up
it's
straight up.
totally it's totally different. And so when you do your calls from, hey, is this so and so? Hey, so and so, my name is so that that's a verbal cue. That makes the conversation sound more natural, and it also makes you sound a little bit confused about who the hell you are, right? My name is just it's Darian, right? In comparison to, hey Savannah, my name's Darian. It's, hey Savannah, my name's just it's just Darian. You hear the difference? There's a big difference, and it's received differently too. That's the key point. Is it's received differently. So when you're doing these calls, if it's a cold call, you want to sound confused at the very beginning of the call, because you're going to create, and this is really important, when you sound confused at the beginning of your cold call, you create something that a lot of people don't even know about. And it's this pattern interrupt. Bear with me, y'all. I told you I'm not the strongest speller. Um, you
You are.
interrupt, you interrupt a pattern that they are used to, right? If somebody called you and they presented themselves the way that I have presented myself, what does it do? It creates a little bit of curiosity. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
Savannah, yeah, I was just wondering if you could possibly help me out for a quick sec, right? Like, yeah, like how can I help you? You create curiosity. So think about it like this: human beings, when you look at it from a psychological standpoint, human beings are social creatures by nature. A lot of people like to keep to themselves. For the most part, yes. But if you had an 80-year-old man come up to you in the store trying to figure out how to use his cell phone for directions, would you help him?
Yeah.
Of course, you would help
Right
him.
off.
If you didn't help him, you're a bit of an asshole. Let's be honest. So
Pretty
it's
much.
you would help him, right? I would help him most definitely. And so when you present yourself as being confused right into the phone call and you ask that question, I was just wondering if you could just possibly help me out for a quick sec. You create curiosity, like yeah, like what can I help you out with? Yeah, I'm not too sure you could just yet. Now, what this does, that phrase there takes pressure off of them. So it's not like, hey, I'm expecting you to help me with this problem or to help me with this. I don't know if you can. I have no idea if this is something you're going to be able to help me with. But if you can, great. But it takes pressure off of them. It reduces cells resistance, it reduces cells pressure, and it's very neutral. You're creating a very neutral environment with your prospect. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So can you just ask them? Well, I guess you probably said this, but I don't know if you can help me with this, but maybe you can direct me to the person that can.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You can totally ask them that. Savannah, I'm not too sure this is something you could, possibly help me out with just yet. And if you can, great. But if not, no worries. Hopefully you, I guess, know somebody that may be able to, um, and then go into it. That is you bridging to the next question. That is a natural cue or a verbal cue. So your tonality is very, very important, but so is your verbal pacing, right? So let's take example this question here. So what has you looking to possibly part ways with your property now, though? How was my pacing with that when I read it? It's fast, right?
Hmm.
If I had asked you that, how would you receive it? It's like, man, is this guy reading from a script or what? Right? Like,
Yeah.
But what, I guess, what, Savannah, what has you looking to possibly part ways with the property now, though? Right? It's like, oh, well, it's just um, time to let it go. When you ask something like that, that question there is meant to go below the surface. You use that question to pry to get below the surface. But how you ask it is really important. And so if you just read through it and you run through it, you're going to get a very knee-jerk reaction. You're going to get a very surface level answer. And that's the last thing that you want to do. So when you're looking at this and you're thinking about your verbal pacing, your verbal pacing is how fast you ask a question or make a statement. Make a statement. Basically, it's how fast you're talking. It's how fast you're talking. When I would train lead managers or even some acquisition guys, when it came to their script, the biggest commonality, the biggest problem that the vast majority of these people face was their pacing. Because when you're reading from a script, you're reading from a script. And it's hard to put, if you're not experienced, it's very difficult to put it's very difficult to consider your tonality. It's also very difficult to put in verbal cues and to bridge. It's just real hard to do if you're just reading from a script. Because think about it, when you're reading a book, right? It's the exact same concept. So when you're reading this, you want to make sure you slow down, right? When I would teach, or not teach, but when I was training these lead managers, and I would listen to their calls, or even the acquisition guys, and I would listen to their calls, they're talking way too fast. And when you talk too fast, it just comes out like word vomit. Blech, right? You don't want that because it shows a lack of confidence. Two, it shows that you're reading from a script. And three, it just doesn't come off as being authentic or genuine. And so anytime you're doing sales and negotiations, you want to be authentic. You want to have your natural self involved into the actual script or into the pitch. Like that's going to be very important. It's going to be key. So when you're reading, what has you looking to possibly part ways with your property now, though, right? So if you implement, let's do a confused tone, and we're going to put in a few cues so that way we could bridge. Okay. So, Savannah, after I guess everything we talked about so far, what has you looking to possibly part ways with the property like now, though? You hear the difference? Like, do you hear that difference? It's night and day difference, right? And when I ask you something like that, it's not intrusive of a question. And when I ask you the same question, but when I ask it in that way, you're not going to have a knee-jerk response or a knee-jerk reaction. And it's more likely that you're going to give me more information that I actually need on why you're looking to part ways with that property. Okay. So that's really, really important. Like, what has you looking to, I guess, possibly part ways with the property now, though? Right? Big difference. So that's how you implement verbal cues. Verbal cues, again, are going to be your uhs, ums, okay, right? Those are going to be your verbal cues. Your verbal cues are important. And the reason they're so important is because we got verbal pacing here. It's going to put verbal cue right under The reason they're important is because verbal cues allow us to bridge toward our next question. And also they also help us make the conversation, make the conversation more natural. More natural, right? You can do verbal cues when you're talking, but you can also do verbal cues when you're listening. That's key, right? So when we implement or when we use verbal cues, it's so bad. Did I even spell that right? I don't know. Whatever. When we use verbal cues through in a conversation as a listener or during active listening, we are showing the prospect that one, we're paying attention to what they're saying. We're paying attention to what they're saying. Two, we actually um, we actually care about what is going on in their world. And this lets them feel like the most important person in the world at the moment. In the world. A lot.
It's so weird because like when you're coming up, they tell you not to do this stuff.
100%. It's opposite. It's totally opposite, ain't it?
It is. So like
Mhm.
listening to all this, I'm just like, oh my God, I like made myself learn how to not do it. And now it's like you need to do it
Yep.
to change it up. So I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah. So like there's a lot of different sales methods out there. You've got the ABCs of selling. Always be closing, right? This is very assumptive selling. You've got spin selling. You've got consultative selling. You've got straight line selling. Like there's all these different methods on how to sell. And a big commonality that all of them have is that for the most part, they work. Don't get me wrong, they do work, but you're going to get a lot of your closes on what is called like your lay down sales. So these are people that absolutely need your product no matter what. So even if they went with you or they had an appointment with somebody else, they're going to sell. These are called your lay down sales. But what sets you apart from a lot of different people in this industry is having the ability to do this, right? There's um, there's a really good quote in the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and he talks about being at a dinner. Um, yeah, he talks about being at a dinner, and basically he's the new guy at the dinner, and there's one dude there that's like this veteran, and I can't remember what business that they're talking about, but um, everything he was saying was like completely wrong, and so Dale was trying to correct him, but by doing so, he was embarrassing him in front of everybody else. So Dale's mentor kind of kicked his foot. I was like, "Hey, don't do that." And so after the dinner, he broke it down. He's like, "Look, when you do that, you're not allowing him to save face. You're not allowing him to save face, um, and it's going to build a bad, not a reputation, but it's going to put a bad foot in his mouth for you. So, like, stay away from doing that." And then what's really important is like, um, it's weird. Sorry, bird. What's really important is like when you do this, when you have this, when you're asking the seller all these questions, you're really making them feel like the most important person in the world. And so another thing that Dale Carnegie talks about in his book is like when you can have somebody talk about themselves and all you're doing is asking questions and they're talking to you and talking to you and talking to you, they're going to feel like you're best friends. And you could walk away and they may not know anything about you, but because they were able to just talk about who they are and everything that they got going on, you build so much rapport and you build so much trust with them. And it's entirely true, especially in this industry. But a lot of these different selling or sales methods teach the exact opposite of this. And that's what causes a lot of rift when it comes to the relationship that we should have with prospects. So instead of it being very um, relationship centric, it's very transactional. And that's what you want to refer away from. You don't want to make it sound or be transactional.
So
Um,
when you're talking to agents, though, you want it to be the opposite, right?
no,
Because
same
they're
thing
all
with
about business.
yeah, no, same thing with agents. Because at the end of the day, this
Okay.
is yeah, you can use this stuff for business to consumer and business to business. So when you're looking at agents, it's business to business, right? And you can use the exact same things. And the reason I'm saying that is because hell, I use the exact same things. Like when I call cold call an agent, just how I cold called you in that role play is the exact same way I cold call an agent, the exact same way. And you're going to
So I
get better
act
responses.
naturally nervous. Got it.
Mhm. Because when it comes to agents, a lot of agents are not very investor friendly for whatever reason. They're not. They should be, but they're not. So right off the gate, you're already coming in with a bit of a bad taste in their mouth because you're an investor, right? And so one of the things I tell agents right off the bat is like once I've done that introduction and gotten into the call, I'll tell them flat out like let's say their name is we'll just say Savannah. We'll just say you. We'll just use you as an example. Um,
Okay.
it would be like Savannah, I guess to be frank with you or transparent with you, you're probably not gonna like me off too much. And I laugh, right? Because it's you're being playful. You're probably not gonna like me all too much. Reason for it is I'm actually an investor here in the DFW area, and I'm just looking to connect with and build my network with some more, I guess, unicorn agents, I suppose, because they're so rare. I guess, are you opposed to like working with investors or like how does that look for you? Right. So that's how I present that when I'm talking to agents for networking, because not every agent is investor friendly. And I also want to find out how, like, if they are or if they're not at the beginning of the call. So I don't waste my time with them on the call. Um, so that's why I do that. And then I also say a unicorn agent because it's every agent wants to be a unicorn agent. It's like the grass is green on the other side, right? When you see something that's better, you want it, right? Grass is green on the other side. When somebody says a unicorn agent, you're like, what the hell is a unicorn agent? I want to be a unicorn agent. So that's why I throw out unicorn agent jokingly, but also like very seriously. Okay, let's see.
Okay.
So, all right. So that's confused, challenging. A challenging tone would be more along the lines a little bit later on in the, I guess, conversation on the seller appointment, and this is going to be more so when you're asking a specific kind of questions. So you're going to be asking consequence questions when you're using the challenging tone. So I guess to kind of help out with this, there's a flow. Just draw a line. Try to make it as straight as possible. Close enough. Okay. All right. So here, where's my question mark? Here. There we go. This is the very beginning of a conversation. You've got connecting questions. Okay. And then got situation. Okay. Got problem awareness. Okay. got problem awareness, solution awareness, You got consequence. Okay. Oh darn! I'm running out of space. I thought I'd have enough. Problem awareness, solution awareness, consequence. There we go. And then we got our presentation, or transition, really. Transition phase. Going into our presentation. And then finally, our close. Okay. This is how a conversation should be structured when doing B2C or B2B. Okay. This is how it essentially should be. So you got your connecting questions, your situation questions, problem awareness, solution awareness, consequence, and then from there you go into your transition phase where you're going to be doing your presentation and then your closing. So earlier what I was trying to show y'all, let me see if I got a triangle in here. Look at that. Okay, so we have a triangle. Most appointments are ran like this. They have 3 sections. They've got rapport building, trust building, where they focus maybe about 10% on. So this is like 10%. And they've got let me see here, presentation, which is going to be, say, maybe a good solid 50% of the time focused on. And then they got closing, which is spent the remaining 40%. This is how your traditional, typical kind of wholesale appointments go. You've got it to where people are running the appointment, focusing only 10% on building rapport and building trust with the clients. Then they're focusing the vast majority of the time on their presentation. This is the property itself, walking the property, talking about the property, and then how you're going to present your offer. And then your closing is going to be you trying to close the deal. This is where a lot of people spend a good amount of time. And ironically enough, the longer you spend in this area, the less likely it's going to happen. Funny thing. So we want to refrain from that, I guess, structure. And this is kind of what we want to focus on here. So actually, I just use the same one. There we go. So we want to have, oh, darn. Let me see. Hold on. How do I have a eraser? There we go. Okay. Rapport, trust building. So the way we want to do this is we want to have 3 phases. You've got engagement. This is going to be 85, or I'd say about 85% of the entire triangle. So you got your engagement phase. You've got your, if I can go back to it, transition phase, or presentation, I would say. Presentation phase. And this is going to be about 85, 15, where's that? Let's see, 95. It's going to be about 10%. And then you got your actual closing. And we want to spend about 5% here. So this is how it should actually look. So we want to, it's basically the triangle needs to be upside down. We want to focus the majority of our time on building rapport and building trust with our clients. 10% of the time that we're there, we want to focus on the actual property itself. And then we want to only focus 5% on the actual closing. So and how you do this, you can do, let's say, 5% of this before you do your engagement. So when you actually talk to somebody, you can ask them kind of what's going on with the property and what they're currently doing. So that is going to be, go back, that's going to be your situation. So your situation phase is basically what is the seller doing to sell the property? What's going on with the property? What have they done in the past to sell it? So these are questions that we want to find out, right? That's going to be your situation. What is the situation going on behind this? You're connecting. At this point, your connecting questions are dependent on the type of lead it is. It depends on the lead type, and yeah, it really just depends on lead type. So, like if you're doing a cold call, if it's an inbound lead, outbound lead, they're all different connecting questions. So it really depends. This is basically going to be a quick overview of everything, and then we start diving into all this little stuff following Monday. So at this point, at the presentation, or not the presentation, but at the appointment, that's when we're diving into the situation questions. Like, what is actually going on behind it? Um, your presentation, that's when you're actually, again, focusing on the property, right? So when you go to the home, you could split it. You could do, you could walk the property at the very first, at the beginning of the appointment, come back into the living area or the kitchen, have everybody regroup, and then just start focusing on this, right? You want to focus on the engagement. Um, and then when you're getting ready to go into, I guess, presenting your offer or even presenting what's going on in the market, that's when you can start focusing on the remaining 5%. So that's where that right there is where you break down everything that's going on in their market. You break down their ARVs, you run their numbers, you run your numbers with them, you just lay it all out, right? And then from there, you only want to focus 5% of your time on closing, which is complete contradictory to everything else that's taught out there for sales. But the reason you want to only focus on 5% is because one, it creates a lot less sales resistance. Um, and at this point in the closing, or at this point in the close, you've asked all these different questions. You've built up so much of an emotional gap from where they are to where they want to be. And when you're asking them these questions, they're telling themselves the answers out loud. So they're listening to you, or they're listening to themselves answer these questions, building that gap. So by the time you get down to your actual closing, it's essentially a no-brainer. It really is. So this whole process, the way it breaks it down, is it's kind of like Socrates and Jordan Belfort came together and created a sales process. That's the best way to explain this. Um, so when you get to that closing, essentially, when you cover everything, it could be like, so I guess, so John, like based off everything you and I talked about, like I guess what's the next step from here? And see what they say, right? You'd be surprised at how many people are telling you, like, or will tell you, like, like I guess the next step from here would be, moving forward. And if they say anything else along that, and they give you an objection, and they're like, oh well, I need to think about it, or yeah, I need to think about it. I got to talk it over with my spouse. I talk it over with my kids, um, uh, or even if it's a price objection. Then now we're starting our real negotiations, because when they give us an objection, that objection's not the true reason behind what they're saying. Oh, I need to think about it. Okay, well, there's a lot to think about. What are you like? This is how I would say it, but it's like, what are you really needing to think about? That's what I need to figure out. So, how you overcome that objection is going to determine what's actually going on, right? So if somebody says, I need to think about it, the way I would respond to that is I'd mirror it back. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I'd mirror it back, and I would repeat it back, like, okay, you got to think about it. All right, I guess when. I guess when should we circle back around to this, right? Because now we're going to set a date for a follow up. I guess when should we circle back around to this? Like, oh, I'll get back to you. Let's say they're like, I'll get back to you Friday. You could say something along the lines of, okay, well, let's do this. Let's go ahead and get a time scheduled in the calendar because, and for the most part, I'm just not really randomly available for a phone call. So let's get a time scheduled between you and I. I've got my calendar handy. Can you, I guess, pull yours up as well so we can look at it together? And if you're in person, they're not going to say no. So they'll pull it up. You look at the time. You set a time. Well, when you set a time, your following question should be something along the lines of, what I say, John? I think I said John. Like, okay, John. So for the most part, I think you and I cover quite a bit of ground. I'm gonna give you a ring Friday at 1:30 p.m. or so. I guess, you know, just so I'm better prepared. When we have that phone call, what are some questions you have on your mind now that I could potentially answer? Just so I understand. Like, oh yeah, well, I had this, and that. So that's when they're actually going to tell you their true concern. And so now you can keep the schedule in place, but now that you know their true concern, you can tackle it right there, right then and there. So that's how you would get over that objection. So I need to think about it. Perfect. Great. You need to think about it. Totally okay. Let's set a time and place that works for both of our calendars. Now, once you have that time set, I guess, John, like, just so I'm, I guess, better prepared when we hop on our call Friday. What are some questions that you've got in your mind that you would like to go over? Um, I guess just so I better understand. Like, yeah, I had this, and that, or whatever. Again, that's how you get their true concern. That's how you get over that objection, and that's how I would handle that objection. Um, does that make sense? Cool, 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 cool. Now I'm
Yes.
throwing a lot at y'all. Um, Now, another thing to consider when it comes to sales and negotiations, you've got several different tactics that you can use, right? So throughout your conversation, there's a few things that you want to utilize. One of them is mirroring. Mirroring. I got spelled that right. I have no idea. One of them is mirroring. Another one is labeling. And then you've got price anchoring. Okay. These are all really good tools to use when doing your sales and your negotiations. So mirroring, labeling, those come very heavily from Chris Voss, who was an FBI negotiator for like 20 years, and he wrote Never Split the Difference. Phenomenal book. Um, and then you got price anchoring, which is a really great tactic to use, especially if the seller's not giving you a price that they have in mind or what their asking price is for a property. So price anchoring is really good. I had a dude the other day um, that's also ironically an investor and a wholesaler as well. And so when we are talking about his property, he didn't want to give me his price at all. And so I price anchored him at like 230, hard 230. And he was at originally 295. Because I price anchored, I got him to 275. Because I stuck to my price anchor, I got him down to 240. Um, and the most I nudged was like 236. So you can utilize price anchorings to get a number out of somebody and figure out where you need to be to meet middle grounds. So these three are very important to use. Okay. Now let's see what else. Right. Okay. That, for the most part, is the overall outline of like the sales and negotiations of tools, techniques, structuring the conversation. This is the conversation, I guess, flow, and breaking down tonality, what verbal pacing is, what verbal cues are, how to use verbal cues into bridging. Body language, you can utilize body language with mirroring. So when you're at an in-person appointment and you have your seller and you're going through your spiel and their arms are down, they're listening to you, their head is tilt sideways and they're attentive, you've got their attention. But the moment they put their arms across, they fold their arms up, whatever you just said triggered some form of sales resistance. And the way to get rid of that, the way I get rid of it, is I mirror what they do. So I fold my arms up, just like how they have their arms folded. This is called isopraxism. It's a psychological thing. It's some, I don't know. It's weird. It's fancy. Um, but when you're talking to somebody in person at in-person appointments, even on the phone sometimes, you are radiating at a frequency that they could pick up on, and vice versa. So if you're meeting on the same frequency, if you're at that same frequency or energy, I suppose, I guess vibe. Um, if you're on the same vibe, then you're connecting. So if they cross their arms, I want to cross my arms. And I wait 15, 20, 30 seconds, I uncross my arms. When I do that, almost every single time, they do it. Right? Think about it like when you go to a restaurant and you're having a business meeting or you're just having dinner with a spouse or whoever. When you pick up your drink to drink, they do the same thing. When they pick their drink up, you do the same thing. That's isopraxism. That's mirroring. That's how you mirror body language. And another way to break somebody from getting defensive and have their arms crossed is by physically giving them something to hold. If you can physically give them something to hold, you're forcing them to open their arms up to take whatever object you're giving them. So that is another way to get them to break that defensive body posture. Because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. They're guarding themselves, they're defending themselves from whatever it is that you had just said that upset them or offended them or just rubbed them off in the wrong way. And so when you break that, you're pulling that guard right back down. Now, you've got, again, there's the saying ABCs of closing, you always be closing, right? Always, oh, damn, this is embarrassing. Always be closing. Okay. If this is the method you're going to use, you're going to lose a lot because it's very assumptive. You're assuming a sale. And in this industry, you never want to assume at all. Like, you do not want to assume. There is another good analogy, and this comes from Jeremy Miner, the ABDs of closing. Always be disarming. The ABDs, you always want to be disarming. You want to focus on this and stay away from this. Because if you can keep your prospect's guard down throughout the conversation, one, you're going to run into a lot less objections, and they're usually going to come towards the end of the appointment or the end of the call. But you're also going to be building so much more rapport and trust with them that you're going to become a natural, or not natural, but you're going to become a trusted authority in their mind. So when you can do this, you're setting yourself apart from every other investor or every other wholesaler that's reaching out to them. And you're doing what Steve Train calls scorching the earth. So when you scorch the earth, basically what that means is you did such a damn good job on that phone call or that seller appointment that when other people come in and try to do the exact same thing and they do all the like the ABCs of closing, they do consultative selling, spin selling, whatever, and it comes off as just being like it just creates a lot of sales resistance. They're going to look at them and not view them as a trusted authority as they viewed you. I've had a lot of people, a lot of sellers come back to me and tell me about their experiences with another investor or another wholesaler and break down and explain why they want to move forward with me in comparison to them. So that's really, really key. Let's see. Okay. Mirroring, labeling, price anchoring. You always want to be disarming. Yep. Connecting questions, situation questions, problem awareness. Yep, yep. Cool. That's a lot. So this is a lot. This is definitely a lot. Do y'all have any questions on this? Yeah, that's a lot. Y'all are good? No questions? Nice. Cool, cool, cool. All right, so let me see. Okay, cool. So again, like this one is going to be just a brief overview of like sales and negotiations. And for the most part, it really is. It's a brief overview of all of it. Um, Coming Monday, the next Monday, we'll start focusing and breaking down these different stages and these different questions and how to ask them. And we can start doing some objection handling and some more role plays. Okay, let's see. All right, cool beans, cool, cool, cool. All right. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. Let's see. Did okay. Cool. 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 All right. Sweet. What to do? What to do? All right, y'all. I think that's going to be it for now, at least for today. Let's see. Did I miss anything? Mirroring, label, price anchoring. Stay away from that. So that's going to be a no-go. Okay. Always be disarming. Yep. Oh, that's what I missed. So for those watching on YouTube, another important one is going to use or being using neutral language. Using neutral language, super important stuff. Okay, so this is staying away from words like contract, sign, like sign the contract. This is also staying away from words that are assumptive. Never want to assume. Dang it. Darn it. How can I make it smaller? There we go. Neutral language, so contract, sign, uh, let's see, you could do not use, I would say don't, or don't say contract, The agreement. Let's say sign. Say authorize. Okay. Can use words like possibly, maybe, potentially, possibly, maybe, potentially, and don't say why. Why? Those are all really important as far as using neutral kind of languaging. Okay. Cool beans. That's fine. All right. So that's pretty much everything. We'll touch more on Monday. This coming Monday, we can start diving into the actual connecting stage, and then from there, just take it, I guess, week by week. So nothing too crazy. But I know this was a lot, so hopefully this helps out with you guys. If y'all have any questions, feel free to shoot me over a message through text or messenger or email, whatever works best for you. So, but I think that covers about everything. Let's see. Before we wrap up, bro, do you have any questions, brother?
No, I don't.
I know it's a lot, man, and we just kind of touched on like the surface. So it's a lot of information.
Can you go back to that page that you were just at?
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, back there. Okay.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's crazy how sales have changed over the years because like what you're saying as far as negotiation and sales. I sold cars for back in 2008, right when I got out of the military, and they didn't teach you this stuff here, and maybe this stuff works better with people.
Oh yeah, no, 100%, man. So a lot of this stems from Jeremy Miner and what he teaches over at seventh level. So he developed a method called NEPQ, and um, it's a 9-day difference, man. So a lot of this information is actually in this book, and this is essentially like a sales Bible that I have, and I highly recommend it. It's incredible. It's an incredible book. It's got a lot of great information in it, and he breaks down quite a bit of stuff. But um, as far as like it's more in tune with how we are as human beings, and it's more in tune with this art like psychology or with psychology, uh, and so it just produces a much better results. So for example, as far as car sales go, because that's one of the industry they teach as well, one of the big connecting questions that they have is when they come up to a client or a prospect, um, right off the gate, typically when you ask somebody in the car industry, it's like, or when you come up to somebody and you ask them how you can help them, or what they're looking for, or anything of, I guess, that nature. Most times you're going to have somebody tell you, "Oh, we're just looking," right?
Right.
One of the best ways to, and we'll touch more on this as we get further into it, but one of the best ways to overcome an objection is to prevent the objection from happening in the first place. And so if you know that a lot of clients or potential clients tell you that, hey, we're just looking, if you come up to them, we'll say John, I don't know, like John. Actually, I don't even know their name yet. So I walk up to him and ask him, "Hey, you guys just like looking, or like have you found what y'all are looking for? Or are you just kind of I guess browsing around?" Oh yeah, we're just browsing around. So now you've already like started that introduction, and it allows you to really kind of take it from there. But you're not coming in asking how you can help, or you're not pitching them per se. You're just starting a conversation, and the way you're starting it is a lot. It creates a lot more, or a lot less, I should say, a lot less sales resistance. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can beat a prospect to an objection, it's not the objection is not going to come up. So let's see what else. Yeah, yeah. Do you have like are there any specific things that you run into when it comes to like sales or negotiations?
I haven't been into sales in a long time. Usually, when I sell stuff to people, because I've been plumbing for the last 5 years, I just tell them what they need, and they either tell me they want it or they don't. So,
Yeah,
um, but usually, when like I said, when you recommend something for a person's house and they don't have a clue about it, they'll usually buy it, especially if you tell them it's something that you'd personally put in your own home.
yeah, yeah. Um, I guess how can you see, or how do you see like any of this like benefiting you? Um, I guess in your not experience, but in your future endeavors, like when it comes to like real estate.
The way I see it benefiting me is like you said, it kind of like I'm pausing right now, and I saw you doing it quite a bit. It seems like you've practiced that almost to where it becomes just a part of what you do when you conversate with people. And you're just kind of implementing that. Well, that's what I'd want to do with some of these skills, is just start implementing that. Um, it To me it'd be kind of hard because I don't, unless I'm thinking about what I'm saying, I don't usually pause and do that kind of stuff. Usually
Yeah,
I'm pretty fluent on what I'm saying, but like you said, you definitely can tell when someone pauses. It makes somebody listen a little bit more. It's crazy, the psychology behind sales, and there's a lot of it.
100%, man. And so it's kind of funny. Uh, I had saw somebody make a post on one of not Andy Elliott's. It's damn, I can't remember his name. He's a big speaker, um, and he was talking about using verbal cues. He didn't call them verbal cues, but there were verbal cues. He was mentioning or talking about like ah, okay, stuff like that, right? Like verbal cues, and how it negatively or it creates a negative image in your prospect's mind. And so I made a comment on it. It's kind of funny. I made a comment on it, and it was like basically what I was saying is like those are called verbal cues, and it actually creates and reinforces a positive impact in their mind because you're not sounding scripted. You don't sound scripted, and you're creating. It helps you bridge into asking difficult questions, so they're not intrusive, and you're able to build more rapport. And you're able to build more trust. So really, it creates or it allows you to become a trusted authority. And like the amount of responses, I had like one person tell me that like, or one person have a negative comment, but everybody else was like, I never thought about it like that. It's like, yeah, dude, like it works. It really does work. So, uh, but yeah, it takes a lot of practice, man, especially when you're trying to use all this and active listening at the same time. It's a lot.
Yeah, well, so is this something you practice a lot, doing cold calls, or is this something that um you've just where does your experience come with this? Like, I know you're in an office atmosphere right now, so like is this something you practice all the time?
100%. Yeah, every day, every single day. Because if I'm not talking to other wholesalers or other agents or a direct to seller, then I'm usually talking to my wife, my parents, and maybe a couple friends. So I definitely practice it on a daily basis. On a daily basis. And the more reps in that you get, the better you're going to become at it and the more natural it's going to be. And so it's not just utilizing verbal cues, but also utilizing like your pacing, your tonality, what tonality to use, when to use it, how to use it. It the more practice you get in or more reps you get in, the better you're going to be. So yeah, I use it on a daily basis, talking to agents, wholesalers, or even direct to seller.
Cool.
Yeah, and I can't say I've been doing like I haven't been using this technique for the full 9 years I've been doing this because I haven't, right? Like I have not been. I paid a lot in mentorship and coaching, um, and that's where I started picking up a lot of it. So between the last, I'd say 2.5, 3 years is where it's like really been accumulating. Um, but yeah, so between Jeremy Miner, Chris Voss, uh, and that's pretty much it. Jeremy Miner and Chris Voss is my go-to guys for real estate sales. Um, so yeah, I like Chris's methodology when it comes to no like not compromising, price anchoring, and mirroring. But I love Jeremy Miner's philosophy and methodology behind actual sales and negotiations, how it should be structured, the questions you ask, and really using the human psychology to your advantage. That yeah, it's awesome.
Where do you find most of their information?
So where I came across Jeremy Miner was a part of CG because I was a part of Collective Genius for a good bit. Um, and I Googled, or not Googled, but I looked up sales and negotiations in their vault, and one video, not one, but yeah, one main video caught my attention, and that was the video with Jeremy. And so I listened to that video like 6 times that day. And so after that, man, I was like, who the hell is this guy? So I dove in, looked him up on YouTube, found his YouTube content, listened to all that, found his podcast, listened to all that, found out he had wrote a book, bought the book, read the book, and then I was like, okay, how can I get coached by this guy? Like this is the guy I want to learn sales from. And so looked further into it, came across Seventh Level, um, got a part of became part of their IC and their inner circle. I've just been running with it, man. So between that and all the stuff that Chris teaches, that's essentially what I use, man.
Sweet.
So, yeah, and it definitely helps when it comes to credibility, creating credibility, um, and really overcoming objections. So helps out a lot. So,
Awesome. I'll check those books out.
Yeah, man.
Check them out on YouTube, I guess. YouTube would be a good source to checking them out.
Oh yeah, 100%. So we'll do. Thanks for Jeremy's name. Jeremy Miner. So I'll put his name in the chat. Jeremy, super swell guy to listen to. Savannah, do you have any questions? I know that was a whole lot.
No, and I had to go off for a second because I had to do a video call with my daughter's doctor. So
Oh, you're fine. You're totally fine. No worries at all.
I'm just gonna have to go back and watch some of it.
Cool. Too easy. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. And again, next Monday when we start diving into it, I'll start breaking down the actual like different questions as far as the connecting questions, situation, so on and so forth. We'll start breaking these down and look at how to actually use them and then we could do a little bit more like role plays and overcoming objections.
Can you put that back up
Yeah, 100%.
so I can screenshot it?
Yeah, go for it.
Got it.
Cool. Sweet. You all have anything y'all are currently working where y'all need role plays on? Any situation or anything like that?
No, nope. I don't. I'm still a pretty new gator, so I'm just trying to figure out the best way to hopefully get a deal and start getting more deals, get some kind of cash flow, because this is my full-time gig right now. So just trying to make it work and trying to figure out what's the best way. Like there's so many avenues when it comes to creative finance and real estate, and didn't even realize there was this much. And there's so many great people. That's the awesome part about it, is the community. You, Dre, Savannah. I mean, there's just so many people out there that are just awesome. So super awesome people. And thank you for putting this on.
Yeah, no, of course, man, of course. So y'all helped me achieve one of my goals for the year, so I appreciate y'all being here and showing love and support with it all. So super excited to see where this goes and to potentially work together. And yeah, so, and that's another thing too. One of the things that we're looking for here at the company is we're actually trying to build our network with more PMLs to raise more capital for like flips and stuff. So if that's something you'd be open to, I'd love to have like a chat with you or discuss it with you, with the owner, and kind of see if there's any, I guess, synergy we could create there as well.
Yeah, I'm down to talk about that.
Sweet. All right. Cool. Do you have my number? You got my number, right?
Yeah, I got your number. I'll give you a text.
Yeah, shoot me over a text, man, and I'll see if I can get us on a conference call with our owner here and see if we can make something work.
Cool.
Boone's going to be at the meetup in Aspire too.
Killer.
Yeah. Won't be going to Aspire. That'd be cool to see David Goggins.
Yeah,
That
man.
dude's bad.
Yeah, he's
intense.
That's discipline.
You ain't a kid. That's
No. Yeah, I can't even. Man, I struggle waking up at 5 a.m. just to work out. I can only imagine the shit I hear him say.
Oh, dude, he's insane. He's crazy. I've watched a lot of his videos. I'm just like, wow. He puts stuff to the next level. And he's old. I think he's 54. So it's not like he's a young buck. He's intense.
Damn, that's a hell of a mindset to have, man. So,
it is.
But it makes sense, especially coming from sales, So I get it, man. I do. The hard chargers.
Yeah. Cool.
I can't get up early to save my life. Dre's the early riser around here, and he goes to bed early. Me, no. I'm up late and I work late.
Yeah, see, I'm like Dre. I like to go to sleep early. Like if I get to sleep by 9:30, and then I'd be up around 5:36. Yep, that's the way I like it.
Oh no, he gets up at like 3:30.
Oh wow. Yeah.
No, that's a hard pass for me.
No. I like my 7 hours of sleep, but I don't need any more than that really.
Oh no, I hear you there. I'm right there with you, man. All right, y'all.
All right.
It's been killer having you guys the whole day. Sorry for bombarding y'all with all this information.
No, it's been great.
Sweet.
No, I like it.
Yeah.
Killer.
I'm in the school of Darien, so I'm cool.
You're in what?
I'm in the school of Darien. The University of Darien.
Oh, that's funny. That's awesome. I love it. Sweet. Well, yeah, we'll hop on again this coming Monday, and if y'all have any questions between now and then, feel free to shoot them over to me in a text or messenger or whatever, and I'll make sure that we cover it on whatever topic you got. If y'all have any feedback, anything I could do to make things better, more streamlined, let me know, and I can start utilizing that as well, putting that in play. Yeah, I guess before we hop off, no questions, no comments. Everybody good?
Mm.
Good.
Sweet. All right, y'all. Well, I look forward to connecting with y'all in these coming events, and then hopping back on this coming Monday.
Sweet. Thank you again.
Yeah, no, thank y'all.
All right. Have a good one. Bye,
Bye.
Savannah.
Bye, y'all.
Yeah, I said bye.